Hi guys, so this lecture is building on the previous lesson I've done with you, just thinking about how to apply research characteristics to different participants and settings. Um, there are only a limited number of participants in studying education. Predominantly, the three main ones are students, teachers and parents, and there are also a slightly wider range of settings. And if you can help remember some of the issues and strengths of researching these different groups in certain settings, this is much more likely to get you a Band 4 or Band 5, Band 4 and Band 5 credited points for your 20-mark Methods in Context essay. So just a reminder, on the left there, the purple, Band 4 is a point that identifies the strengths and weakness of a method linked to researching education in general. Or, this is what we're kind of working on today, identifying a research characteristic associated with the specific context of the question. So that could be investigating teacher labelling, pupil exclusions, impact of subcultures, university attendance, truancy, all sorts of subjects. Those are all contexts. A Band 5, which is when you identify how the strengths and weaknesses of the method relate to the specific context in education referred to in the question, okay? So that's when you're trying to apply the strength and weakness of the method, whatever that might be. So it could be group interviews, unstructured interviews, structured interviews, questionnaires, participant observation, overt and covert observation, non-participant observation, experiments, field or lab, and of course questionnaires with a mixture of open and closed or just one or the other. Those are all the methods I can think of at the top of my head, and you must apply the strength or weakness to whatever the exact context in the question might be. So as I think I said in my previous lecture or previous lesson, you should hopefully have an A3 sheet which basically has the categories underneath on this slide on it, that I'd like you to complete for this lecture. I want you to think of as many issues, both positive things and negative, with researching each of these groups, students, parents and teachers. And in teachers, you might want to include some points by SLT, senior leadership team, including the head teacher, across various settings. And as you're annotating your different ideas, do try and think like the point that you're writing, is it an ethical point, is it a practical point, or is it a theoretical point about, validity, reliability, representativeness? If you get stuck, I would suggest using the textbook. I have scanned some textbook pages and uploaded them to the virtual learning area for you to look at. Or you can grab a physical copy of the book from our office if you ask permission. Or if you have the new textbook, which hopefully most of you do, it's page 101, will help you if you get stuck. The layout of that sheet, if I remember rightly, what I've given you, you have got 3 columns with students and then parents and teachers at the top, and then down the left hand side of your A3 bit of paper you have got all these different research settings, and where I'd like you to annotate what you think it would be like doing research in those different settings for those different groups, and any problems or strengths of doing it in that context. A slight extension activity that might be interesting for you to think about is identify which boxes some of these key studies might apply. So these are ones that I hope all ringing a bell from the AQA sociology specification. Paul Willis, who used a mixture of observation, group interviews, unstructured interviews. Sue Sharp, she did structured interviews. Louise Archer, she used documents and semi-structured interviews, all qualitative research methods so far. Chubb and Moe, they just used achievement data of public schools, so state schools, and private schools, and compared them, and that's official statistics. And then finally you got Gerwitz, who did the study on parental choice, which hopefully is ringing a bell for some of you, and they used interviews of parents, if I remember rightly, kind of off-site predominantly as well. This activity works much better when you work with one or two others, so please do find someone else from sociology to work with for this. Any issues you're not sure who to pair up with, maybe let me know and I'll try and match you up with someone. The more you have doing this together, the easier it is, because you just come up with better ideas and you get more ideas down. So this is a very basic version of what I've given you. The version that I've given you has a few points for each section, just to give you a hint to get you started. And I've done big NA, as in not applicable, in any of the sections that don't apply. So, for example, you do not study parents in the classroom because they're not there. So you'll see NAs in any boxes. You don't need to write anything in. So for the classroom there, I've said, for example, students will spot a researcher easily because researchers will not be members of the school community, perhaps. So they might change their behaviour because of that. And because of the physical characteristics of the researcher, their behaviour might change even more. So for example, physical characteristics, they are practical things about the researcher. Is the researcher old or young, male, female, black, white, or any other ethnic minority? So it's just worth thinking about, with the physical characteristics of the researcher, how might they influence the behaviour of the students in the class, okay? So I always say, for example, I am becoming less and less able to do research where I just blend into the background of a classroom because I'm getting older. And I am unlikely to be able to do, if you like, covert participant observation on, I don't know, anti-school subcultures in an East London school in somewhere like Newham, where the ethnic makeup of the school is much more diverse. I'm white and I'm a woman, so I'm not going to be able to kind of get in with perhaps particularly the male anti-school subcultures because I look so different. So I'm not going to be accepted in those groups perhaps. So you've got to just be aware that the way the actual researcher looks will really affect student actions and behaviour when they're around them in the classroom and around the rest of the school. So you can use that point in a few of the other sections that I've given you. And Paul Willis did his research in the classroom as well as other places as well. So I've just put his name in there. I've given you an example there for being off-site, cafes, parks, school gates. Gurwitz, that's actually in the wrong section, that Gurwitz et al., because they did not do their research on students, they did their research on parents. So well done those of you that spotted that, but make sure you write that in the right section, not that one. And I've said for parents, an issue with researching them at the school gates is they might be parked on double yellow lines when they're collecting their child, so they won't have time. I know when I do bus duty, the parking of parents can be horrendously problematic. They're often in a rush. They're not supposed to be parking where they are to pick up their kids. So yeah, they're unlikely to be able to sit for like a long, unstructured interview, but you may be able to stuff a questionnaire through their window, for example. So maybe that is a method that might be appropriate for that kind of location. And finally, I've given you a quick example there for the private home. You can, of course, research students, parents, and teachers in the privacy of the home, but there are many reasons why that is unlikely to happen. But there are also many reasons why actually doing research in the privacy of the home is actually a really great type of research. Try and think about why students might be more open and honest, and parents and teachers, if they're in the privacy of their own home. But yeah, teachers probably or could have too much marking. They might have families, so they might not be able to take part in the study after work, okay? So please use the rest of the time you've got now to complete that A3 sheet. It should be enormously detailed. There should be several bullet points within each section that you are adding on top of the ones that I've given you. And this is going to become your revision resource, okay? You are going to keep this and treasure this, because if you can get your head around everything on that sheet, you're in good stead to write a good Band 4 or Band 5 essay. Okay, ooh, you don't need to look at that. Thanks so much for listening, guys.